Here we are, 2025 ranking video. We're going to be ranking... I can't even remember how many movies I watched this year. I think it's like 56 or something. Like all 56 or 50-something movies I watched this year. From worst to best. You know the drill. This is the 4th year I've done this now. The video is really late. I've been busy. I've been trying to get it out. But, yeah. Here it is. Like a month late. Let's just get into the ranking. Let's just talk about the movies. The 2025 reinterpretation of the H.G. Wells classic genre-defining story, War of the Worlds, is genuinely a generational level of terrible movie. And we all know why. And we all know that this is why it's at the bottom of the list. The acting, laughably terrible. The effects, practically unfinished. The story, completely forgettable and boring. There was one shining aspect in this movie, and that was, at times, it is so incomprehensibly awful that I couldn't help but burst out laughing, purely from how awful they are. Moments like Ice Cube's, "It's you! It's you!" I still quote that line on a daily basis. But even with those funny moments, I just felt bored most of the time, honestly. And I basically just feel that this movie would work best in an out-of-context clip compilation on bloody TikTok or something. If you really want to hear me talk about this even more, I do have a video on it called We Watched War of the Worlds. But yeah, overall, I basically give this movie a 0 out of 10. Beautiful strangers. What can I say about The Strangers Chapter 2 that isn't glaringly obvious from reading any other review or even watching the first chapter? It's painfully dumb and boring horror movie. It is instantly forgettable, and the same will be true for Chapter 3, which releases in just a few months. There are, however, 2 things I will say about this film that I could consider a positive. One being the fact that it is not as long as it was initially intended, that being 2.5 hours. So now I only have to be tortured for 1.5 hours. The second being that it is at least doing something new and different, as opposed to just cheaply rehashing an already boring horror movie that isn't good to begin with, and just doing it worse. Overall, I mean, unless you love bad horror movies, but like boring bad horror movies, not the cheesy good bad, then do not watch this. I give this film a 1 out of 10. Him is easily one of the worst horror movies I've seen, probably not only recently, but maybe even in the past few years. I actually feel bad for Jordan Peele, who very clearly had his name plastered all over this abomination purely to get butts and seats. And the funniest part is, A, he was literally just a producer and didn't even really do much outside of that. Had no involvement or directing or writing. And B, it didn't even work anyway because this movie bombed. Yeah, don't stop using actually good filmmakers to market your boring horror movies, or really just any movies. Literally, I would rather watch Get Out, Us, or Nope 10 times before watching this again. The sports aspect of the film is too boring to stand on its own because I don't care about sports. And the horror is too dumb and not at all scary to be interesting either. So you have 2 almost completely different bad movies stitched together to make one completely awful one. Don't watch this film because it's just going to be one of those movies that I'm only going to remember because I talked about it and edited this segment of me talking about it in this video. It is a nothing horror movie. I give this movie a 2 out of 10. Moana 2 is just an incredibly generic rush sequel to an already pretty great movie that is just, it's insanely obvious how just stretched from a few episodes of a failed TV show it is. Except instead of lazily being thrown to straight to DVD like they would have done 20 years ago, like with Atlantis and Tarzan, it got put into cinemas, and it ended up making $1 billion. Because of course it did. I give this film a 3 out of 10. Oh wow, what a surprise. Another lazily produced Disney movie, except this time it's another live action remake, this time of Lilo and Stitch. I don't need to explain why this sucks, you know exactly why. I'm honestly just gonna stop watching these damn movies, cause you bet your bottom dollar I will be skipping that Moana remake this year. Yeah, these past two segments have been pretty short, but like, what do you want to hear me say? Everything about these movies has kind of already been said. We all know why this movie sucks. Where almost any other live action remake sucks. I give this movie a 3 out of 10. It's buns.
Play the only way they don't go try, yeah. As I look around me, so many motherfuckers wanna down me, but enemy gon' never drown me. In front of a dirty double mirror, they found me, and I love my.
I thought the new Captain America movie, Brave New World, would at least be a typical semi-fun MCU movie, even if it would be ultimately be a part of the previous three. And well, I've got to say, it really is one of the worst MCU movies by far. The whole movie is supposed to be built around Red Hulk, yet he only appears for a few minutes at the end during some really underwhelming fight. Not to mention the rest of the movie is just trying to follow up events from movies like The Incredible Hulk, which isn't particularly that great, Eternals, which isn't even particularly good, and The Falcon Winter Soldier, which was pretty bad. I don't know why these Falcon Captain America things have been so bad, especially given that I really want to see him in good stuff. Like, I think he has the potential to be really interesting and really fun. But oh well, I'm hoping he'll be good at Doomsday at least. Doomsday. I give this film a 3 out of 10. Look, don't get me wrong. I love the original 2003 Freaky Friday movie, and I probably watch it at least once a year. But this sequel, Freakier Friday, is about worse in about every single way. Instead of giving a charming, almost campy 2000s time capsule movie, it's just a boring, forgettable, cash grab, tug at your nostalgia string sequel. I guess it's still pretty fun at times seeing Lohan and Curtis return, and I mean the body swapping concept will always be fun, but overall, I don't know, this whole thing just really wasn't that interesting, and I will probably never watch this again. But I will continue to watch Freaky Friday probably like once a year. I give this film like a 4 out of 10. The best part of the movie was when Jason Mendoza did a silly little dance. Well, the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie, by no surprise, is just as bad, if not worse, than the previous film. Both movies are pretty bad, maybe even awful horror movies that really are only boosted by the serotonin-stimulating fan service moments, which, given this one doesn't have nearly as many as the first one, it just makes this one even less watchable. I mean, I'll give this film one thing. At least the animatronics still look really good for the most part. And, you know, even the new ones still look really cool and fun to see on the big screen. But, yeah, other than that, the story is over convoluted and messy. It doesn't feel like the game at all, which I probably wouldn't care much if this movie was actually good. Like, the Sonic movies aren't really that much like the games outside of maybe the third one, but they're still really fun movies and with interesting characters. These are not scary. They make bizarre choices that, when compared to the game, it literally just makes the thing more boring most of the time. I'm still going to see FNAF 3 opening night, though, because seeing these in a packed audience with everyone laughing and cheering at all the really stupid moments it's the only saving grace of these movies. I give this film a 4 out of 10.
My life is like a video game, trying hard to beat the stage.
We all saw the memes around the Minecraft movie. Haha, chicken jockey, I am Steve. Water bucket release, coming in hot. And you get to experience those moments with an audience who realizes how ironically funny half of this stuff is, as much as you do, is certainly really the only saving grace of this movie, kind of in the same vein as FNAF 2. The whole movie just looks boring and doesn't really do anything interesting or funny, and well, at least not intentionally funny. However, this film is at least a competent movie that I can see a child watching. Therefore, it gets a boost over FNAF 2. But yeah, this is really as generic of a kids movie as they come. Probably would have watched the hell out of this if it came out like 10 years ago, though. I give it like a 4 out of 10.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I honestly wasn't a massive fan of the original Gladiator movie when I first watched it. I'd heard it was amazing, I really wanted to love it, but I don't know, it just wasn't my thing the first time I watched it. But I think a rewatch could change my mind. However, the sequel, which was supposed to be subpar, didn't really get me excited. And of course, it was exactly what I expected. The whole thing was just kind of visual noise most of the time after a certain point. And the whole thing just was whatever. Nothing too bad, nothing too good either. I just didn't really care that much. I think Gladiator 1, I would like a lot more if I rewatched it. I think this one would just kind of stay whatever. I just kind of give this film like a 5 out of 10. It's fine.
This is the magic trick, huh?
Illusion, Michael. Trick is something a whore does for money.
I recently rewatched the first Now You See Me movie for the first time. Basically, since I first saw it like 10 years ago, I was too young to appreciate it. I was really loving it. I was really digging it. Thought it was such a fun movie. And then the final act just kind of turns into a mess and is really kind of dumb and boring. And then I watched the second one and it was kind of more whatever. I didn't really care at that point. I feel like the ending of the first one kind of soured my taste of this rest of the series. And then I watched this one and I actually enjoyed this one. Not as much as I did the first one, but I had fun with it. And yeah, it's... I thought it would be fun, and while I enjoyed it in the moment, over time it's just kind of become this really forgettable sequel that I probably won't ever watch again. Like, it almost just feels like the definition of a movie that I would watch on Netflix just to pass the time. It's just such a bog standard blockbuster. Nothing more, nothing less. I give this film a 5 out of 10. Well, Nobody 2. I'm honestly a sucker for these kinds of action movies. I adore movies like John Wick 1 through 4, Bullet Train, and of course the first Nobody movie. So obviously this was going to be one of my most anticipated movies of the year, but I was sadly disappointed. The first movie was kind of the first big John Wick action movie to come out after John Wick, and instead of this world being about elaborate hitmen, it was just a guy who used to be involved in that world who was kind of just long retired, taking down some guys who did his daughter wrong. The motivation is simple and the premise is way more grounded, so it almost felt like a breath of fresh air. This one, however, has basically the same motivation, but this time the premise is just them on vacation, so it doesn't really offer enough to feel new and basically feel stale most of the time. I guess the action is still kind of fun to enjoy, and I'll watch Bo Odenkirk in pretty much anything, but yeah, other than that, I mostly just felt bored watching this. I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10.
I'm sure. George loves Mr. Dinosaur.
The original Jurassic Park movie is one of my favourite movies of all time, and the sequels are mostly guilty pleasures of mine. I actually kind of don't mind Jurassic Park 3. Jurassic World is fun. I even didn't mind the last two. So, I was excited for this movie still, even if it probably wasn't going to be great, but I thought it was just kind of whatever. I mean, there were some cool sequences, I guess, but the characters are all just completely forgettable, and the dinosaurs didn't even look that cool. So, I don't care. How do you mess the dinosaurs up, of all things, in a Jurassic Park movie? I mean, it's just a boring blockbuster to otherwise probably one of my favourite franchises, but yeah, this is definitely my least favourite film in the Jurassic Park franchise, come to think of it. But I guess it's still a 5 out of 10.
Well, moron, good for Happy Gilmore. Oh my God!
Happy Gilmore is easily one of, if not my favourite, Sandler comedy. I still rewatch it frequently, and I always laugh at it. Happy Gilmore 2, on the other hand, is one of those movies you watch once, gawk at the references to the first, and go, I remember that part, ooh, and then you never watch it again. It's kind of boring half the time, and it's way too long. It's nearly 2 hours long for some reason. I cannot remember a single time that I laughed at this movie, at least not the part that wasn't just kind of hey, you remember this from the first movie? I guess Eminem's cameo was kind of funny, but it's just a big reference to a scene from the first movie, which is ultimately just more funny anyway. Yeah, it's fine, I guess. It's kind of fun at times, but not really enough to save it beyond being just alright at best. I give this film a 5 out of 10. I remember when I first heard about Mickey 17, thinking it would be some sort of cool looking, visually vibrant, but ultimately confusing sci-fi movie that just wouldn't really be my thing. That was until I saw the trailer, which made this out to be some zany comedy film, almost giving me the vibes of something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, with some mixings of Parasite, obviously, given that this is directed by Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite. And after this, Mickey 17 instantly shot into one of my most anticipated movies of the year, thinking it would be the next sort of Everything Everywhere All at Once style movie. I sat down in the opening weekend of the cinema, and I was disappointed, for the most part. I mean, I still really liked it, though. My main problem was mainly just led way more into the Parasite stuff than the Everything Everywhere stuff that I wanted, but it was still good, right? Right? Well, I decided to rewatch it recently to see how my opinion on the film held up, and oh boy, it does not hold up on a second watch. The whole thing is this bizarre collage of different ideas and themes that don't blend together at all due to none of them being fleshed out enough. It doesn't lean enough into the good stuff for it to be fun, turn your brain off kind of blockbuster, but the stuff presented isn't crazy bad. So the whole thing is just this weird, bizarre, disappointing hodgepodge of ideas and scenes that pales in comparison to Bong Joon-ho's other movies like Memories of Murder, The Host, and especially Parasite. Overall, I just kind of wish this film could have been so much better, but at its best, it's at least a semi-watchable sci-fi movie, and Robert Pattinson is pretty great in the movie. I'll always watch something because he's in it. He's very good. I give this film a 5 out of 10. Leo is the newest movie by Pixar, and yet another one of their movies to flop, sadly. It's kind of sad how subpar Pixar has been when compared to their golden age, but oh well, that's just what it is. I guess this was kind of fun. I mean, I'd rather watch this than a lot of other Pixar movies like Brave, Cars 2, Incredibles 2, Elemental, whatever. But, I mean, the animation's kind of fun and it's pretty cute, but I don't know, it just kind of lacks an oomph that a lot of other Pixar movies have. Oh well, 5 out of 10.
Do a barrel roll!
The first Predator movie to release this year was admittedly a bit of a disappointing one for me. I'd heard so much praise for this movie when it came out earlier this year, and when I finally watched it, I just couldn't really get into it. The first half with the Viking and samurai segments were just kind of not for me, maybe. Maybe if I rewatch this in the future, I'd like them more, but I did quite enjoy the pilot segment, and I didn't mind the ending part, which is when I actually started to get into the movie. I will say the animation does look gorgeous throughout the whole film, and I love the directions that Trachtenberg is taking this franchise, as you will also see later on in this list, but this just didn't fully click with me personally. I'm glad everyone else has loved this though. I give this film a 5 out of 10.
President Trump, if you see this, please save us.
I went into Eddington with some relatively high expectations, thinking it would be a really clever criticism on, idiots during COVID. And it was kind of that for about an hour and a half. And around when I thought it should start wrapping up, it still had like 50 minutes left. And I just really didn't care after that. It just kept going on, and I was just zoning out as it completely went off the rails, basically. But, Phoenix and Pascal are both really great, at least. I can't lie, those first 90 minutes are still pretty good. But, God, it's just too long. I give it like a 6 out of 10.
A complete unknown.
I'm not usually a fan of music biopics. I feel like they're all kind of the same, whatever, generic, forgettable. So why did I like A Complete Unknown more than most of them? Simply for the fact that I saw this with my grandparents, who are huge Bob Dylan fans, and I guess that kind of has a bit of a bias rubbing off watching this with people who are very clearly fans of the music in the film, and I don't have as much this thing is bad because that and that. I just kind of sat back and I relaxed and I just had an alright time. I didn't love it, but it was fine. I will probably never watch it again. But, I enjoyed it in the moment. Probably a 6 out of 10.
But if you don't take out that monkey, you ain't going nowhere. You want to get out of here? Get rid of that monkey.
The Monkey is just one of those movies I watched really early in the year. It was one of the first movies I watched, and I've kind of forgotten a large chunk of the film, so I can't really talk too much of what I liked or didn't like, but I don't know, I remember it just kind of being a pretty fun and silly horror movie with a campy 80s movie vibe. It got just a bit too crazy by the end. I don't really care enough to really revisit it and really give my fresh take on it. I just kind of liked it. It's a 6 out of 10. I remember hearing about the premise for Death of a Unicorn, thinking it would be some crazy, campy horror movie, and while in moments it was sort of like that and pretty fun, and I certainly enjoyed most of the performances, but I feel like the whole thing was just so on the nose with its whole against the rich thing that it almost felt like a parody of itself at times. It's a pretty mixed bag on one hand, I can say it definitely wasn't boring and it had enough fun and crazy parts to make up for it, but it just has too much weak chunks in it to really give it like any rewatchability, or does make it a little bit difficult to recommend, but overall I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10.
Ballerina cappuccina. Me.
I'm a huge fan of the John Wick movies, so obviously I was going to be hyped for the Ballerina spin-off movie, but like Nobody 2, this one just incredibly pales in comparison to John Wick. Although John Wick is much better than Nobody, hence why I probably enjoyed this one more. And at the time I thought it was a pretty fun action movie that just so happened to be set in the John Wick series. However, the biggest problem is that despite only watching this movie about 6 months ago, I already barely remember most of the movie. Like, it definitely does lose some points for that, but I won't deny that I did enjoy myself while watching the film. I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. I feel like I have a bit of a hot take when it comes to the Knives Out movies. I just don't love them as much as most people do. I thought the first one was really charming and had its moments, and it was pretty interesting for the first third and the last third, but the middle just kind of dragged a bit. Glass Onion was pretty similar, except it just was kind of, didn't have the charm that the first one did as much. And this one even more so. It's just kind of convoluted mystery, but like, I don't know, just the mystery aspect that I like in most mystery movies. It's trying to be different, and I get that. I do respect it and enjoy it in parts, but it's just not that. I just don't love it that much. I like it. I can see why people love it, but it's just not my thing as much. But yeah, this is just kind of a pretty good-ish movie for me. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I was really hoping to love Saturday Night. I've been meaning to watch it for ages. I thought it was going to be a really entertaining, anxiety-inducing, stressful sort of dramedy in the same vein as almost like Whiplash or Birdman, but, about SNL. I thought that would be really interesting, because the whole thing is centered around, like, the 90 minutes before the first ever airing of SNL. And I just feel like if the movie was just 90 minutes, like, it would be so much better. Like, the pacing just is a little bit, it just drags on a little bit too long. Like, the film's about an hour and 45 minutes. I think if you just cut, like, 10-15 minutes, it feels so much, it would just feel so much, just better. It just lingers on a few things for a bit too long, but other than that, it's pretty good. I think it's a higher 6 out of 10 than most of the others, because really, it just could be a bit shorter, and I think it just fits way better. But other than that, it just worked pretty well, and I just thought it was kind of alright. 6 out of 10.
And I say, Zangief, you are bad guy. But this does not mean you're bad guy.
The first Bad Guys movie was surprisingly fun, almost like a Tarantino kids movie. And the sequel is kind of just more of the same, but I guess in a good way. It doesn't feel like it's retreading new ground, and more of it just like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The heist aspect is still fun, the animation is still creative, and the stars are all good at their voice acting, and while the movie is mostly the same pros as the first one, it also shares the exact same cons, that being a lot of the jokes really aren't that funny most of the time, and kind of just rely on cheap children's movie humour like fart jokes, and given the film is supposed to be a comedy and the comedy isn't really that funny like 2/3 of the time, it does leave more to be desired. Overall, it's a fun but flawed children's movie that is certainly more watchable and creative than probably most lazily produced children's movie that you probably expect this to be similar to, but it's pretty much just kind of on the same sort of quality as the first one. Yeah, I give it a 6 out of 10.
You're never gonna get me to say, I wish I'd never been sad at all.
Good Fortune is one of the 3 2025 movies I caught up on while on a 6-hour plane flight stuck in a chair. So, in my opinion, maybe boosted given literally any movie is going to be more enjoyable to me when it's a distraction from being in an uncomfortable seat in an insanely long flight. As is, though, the whole thing is just a relatively fun way to spend 90 minutes for me. It very much fits the feeling of an airplane movie with an almost subversion of the It's a Wonderful Life trend of storytelling. Some cute jokes and funny performances leading to just an incredibly alright movie. I had fun with it, so I gave it a 6 out of 10.
My name is Jeff.
Another movie I watched on the plane was Roofman. Once again, another simple little film to watch that passes the time nicely. A lot of people seem to really love this one. I guess I kind of get it. Like, no hate. You love what you love, I guess. A lot of people were watching it on the plane. This was one of 3 movies that everyone was just... I saw everyone watching either Roofman, Good Fortune, or Formula One at some point on the plane trip. In my opinion, the whole thing is probably like maybe 20 minutes longer than necessary. Like, it's like 2 hours long, but doesn't really feel like it needs to be. And I know the whole thing is based on a true story, so there's only so much they can actually have in the story that isn't in real life, but they have this whole plot line with, like, Peter Dinklage's character, where he's this constant jerk the whole movie, and I was expecting some sort of, like, comeuppance scene for him or something, but it just never happens. Like, his story just kind of stops at some point, which I found kind of odd. Tatum is fun, as always, to watch, though. I watch him in probably pretty much anything. And the scenes of him just kind of goofing around are probably the highlight of the film. The whole, how is he going to stay there without getting caught? It was tense and, still kind of goofy and fun. Overall, I give this film like a 6 out of 10.
We have different faces, but inside we are same. Same, but different.
The new How to Train Your Dragon movie is the first live-action remake from DreamWorks. And I have constantly been saying how much I dislike the Disney live-action remakes, even in this very video. So why is this one way higher? It works on its own. I think it's the biggest reason. This works even if you haven't seen the original movie. I think a big problem with a lot of the live-action remakes, apart from looking insanely worse than the original films, is they only work if you have seen the original movies. The Lion King 2019 will not make sense to you if you have not seen the original 1994 movie. This, while despite being literally just a shot-for-shot remake of the original movie, works even if you haven't seen it. It's like it is still interesting seeing the movie in a new medium. Like, the effects still work really well. If this movie had come out without the original movie having come out, people would probably still love this movie. I still enjoyed it. I think the action was fun. I think the music is still incredible. It's done by the same guy, and the original movie score is one of my favorite scores of all time. I'm actually interested in seeing where they go in remaking the sequel, which I'm pretty sure they're doing. This is how you do a live-action remake. You get a movie that could work in live-action, and that's the one you remake. I think that something like, if Disney really wanted to keep doing their remakes, I think Atlantis or Treasure Planet would be like really fun to see in live action. We don't need to see Lion King in live action, because that doesn't work in live action. Technically, it's not even a live action movie, it's an animated movie still, because it's entirely computer generated. But yeah, this was still pretty fun. I think the biggest fault is it literally just is the first movie. Like, I would rather just watch the original. But yeah, you could do a lot worse when it comes to live action remakes. I give this film a 6 out of 10. Boy, oh boy, do I have some things to say about The Running Man. For a bit of background context, this film is directed by Edgar Wright. For any of you who do not know who that is, he is my favourite director, and has been for about 5 or 6 years now. He's made such movies like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, which are 3 movies that are all in my top 5 favourite movies of all time. He's made Scott Pilgrim, which is the movie that got me into his work, which is insanely creative and vibrant, and I've seen probably about 20 times now. And he's made Baby Driver, which is a heist movie centered around car chases. So fun, I bought a car that looks extremely like the one in the movie, purely because of that fact. He then followed up his 5 movies that were around when I first got into his work with 2021's Last Night in Soho. Now, all 5 of his original movies are all really fun, energetic, vibrant, creative, stylistic, comedy, action, horror / sci-fi, romance. You know, they're comedy movies fueled by a different genre. Shaun of the Dead, it's horror, Hot Fuzz and Scott Pilgrim, and Baby Driver, all action, and World's End is sci-fi. But Last Night in Soho was different. So it wasn't comedic, it wasn't supposed to be funny or silly, it was a straight-up horror movie. And I was still very excited for it, seeing how it would go. And it's definitely the weakest of his movies. It's just kind of like a pretty solid horror movie with some pretty cool directional visual flares in there. But I was like, I want a new, vibrant, stylized Edgar Wright movie. Then I hear he's doing a Stephen King adaptation of a book called The Running Man, which is kind of already an action movie from the 80s with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was a little bit skeptical at first. It took a while for us to see anything from this. I was like, is this going to be like a straight kind of action movie without the fun style of his other action movies? And then the trailer came out, and it looked exactly like something from Scott Pilgrim or Baby Driver. I felt like this is what I wanted to see. I was so excited, and initially I put this at like my number 4 most anticipated of the year. If I'd seen that trailer, like, probably would have been number 2. I was so excited. I bought the ticket to see it opening afternoon at 3 p.m. and I was like, I know I'm going to love it so much, why don't I buy a ticket to see it again earlier, but at 12 p.m, and that way I can see it back to back, because I know I'm going to love it so much. I'm going to want to go in, and I'm going to go and want to see it again. And I walk into that cinema opening afternoon, and I'm expecting some big opening scenes. His opening scenes are usually really good. Baby Driver, of course, is like insanely iconic now. Scott Pilgrim, while not really big and flashy, does a really good job at establishing the characters. World's End has a really cool montage backstory. Hot Fuzz has a really cool montage backstory. Shaun of the Dead has a really fun sort of character establishment. And The Running Man just kind of starts with him in a factory getting fired. I'm like, okay, this is alright. Would have expected something a little bit better. And then it kind of goes on, it's establishing the plot. I'm like, okay, it's taking a little bit to really get going, but I bet once it does, all this is gonna come back. All the cool foreshadowing he does in his movies, it's gonna be incredible. And then the opening credits start, and this is when something starts to feel a little bit off. See, he loves doing stylistic stuff. He makes boring stuff fun. It's just part of the reason why I love his movies so much. And Baby Driver, right? Opening credit scene is literally just him walking to a coffee shop and getting coffee. Sounds not that interesting, but he sets it to a song and he puts the lyrics on the wall and the whole thing is this one long take. And it's really fun, and it's actually a scene I go back to watch. I will literally just look up that scene at random because he makes it that interesting. And the Running Man's opening scene is also just Glenn Powell's character walking to work. And it's boring. It's just shot like a normal movie. And this is when the red flag started to come up. And I keep watching the movie, and it's just like a regular action movie. Like, it's hitting the beats you'd expect. It looks fine. It's kind of fun. I guess the characters are interesting. And then the ending happens, and that's when I actually really liked the ending. A lot of people thought that was the worst part. That was the part that I actually really enjoyed. Almost gave me vibes of the ending of The World's End. But I was just like, this is really good, right? And then I was like, oh, right, I still have a ticket to see it again in like 30 minutes. Oh boy, guess I don't want it to go to waste. Had nothing better to do. Was already all the way out here at the cinema. Started to see it again, and yeah, it really clicked with me. This is not an Edgar Wright movie. At least not in the same way of his other movies. Sure, Last Night in Soho wasn't quite as comedic or fun as his other movies, but at least it still felt like one of his movies. It was different, but it was still cool. You could literally tell me this was directed by literally anyone else, like Christopher McQuarrie or David Leitch, and I would not bat an eye. I'm just so disappointed in, as an Edgar Wright movie, this is bad. It's a 0 out of 10. But I can't deny it. It is just a regular good action movie. It does get. I'd probably put it in like the top 20 if I just watched this in that mindset. But I was expecting something special. I was expecting something that could be one of my favorite movies. Hell, I was going thinking this might be a 10 out of 10 movie on first viewing. That never happens. That's only ever happened maybe 3 other times in the cinema. It's disappointing, but I guess it is what it is. It probably would be in the top 20 if it wasn't supposed to be like an Edgar Wright movie, but I don't know what happened here, if it was studio meddling or if he's just losing his touch. But if he makes another movie that's kind of just not like his first 5, I'm really gonna start questioning his current ability to make movies. It's a shame because I wish I could witness one of his movies from his prime as in the cinema for the first time, but this wasn't it. Overall, at least I give this film a 6 out of 10.
God! It's brutal out here.
The Brutalist, one of the longest movies I've seen. I will not be talking about this for nearly as long as I was talking about The Running Man, although this movie is certainly longer than my Running Man segment at a whopping 3.5 hours. It was slow. I mean, it was fine, I guess. I liked it. This isn't something I just am craving for. Adrian Brody's Oscar-winning performance. Did he deserve Best Actor? I guess so. I haven't seen Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice yet. But yeah, I guess he's okay. The movie's kind of interesting, but it's really, really long. I guess I kind of almost forgotten a lot of this movie because there's just so much in it. But yeah, I just remember liking it, and it was one of the earliest movies I watched in this year, so it's kind of the one that maybe my memories like faded it on the most. But yeah, I'd probably give this movie like a 6 out of 10. Maybe my opinion would change if I rewatched it, but I also don't really want to rewatch this 3.5 hour movie, so this is what you're getting. Sorry to any brutal heads out there that was just craving for me to talk about The Brutalist for like 12 minutes. Love Hurts. To anyone who has seen this movie, might be really surprised that this is that high because everyone panned this movie. So why is it so high? I gotta ask you guys the opposite. Why do you guys hate this movie so much? It was a charming, silly, fun little action movie. I loved all the almost Jackie Chan inspired action sequences. Ke Huy Quan is always a blast to watch. He's always the best in everything he's in. The story was simple. It was only like 80 minutes long, and I just had a good time watching it. I had way more fun watching this than Nobody 2 or Ballerina. I actually put off watching this for so long because I knew people hated this movie and I probably wasn't going to enjoy it. But I actually had a blast with this movie. I don't know why I'm in the minority. I would genuinely rather watch this movie again than Nobody 2 or Ballerina. They just kind of felt like boring John Wick light movies, but this actually felt like it was doing something fun with the premise, like how I want it to happen. It's not like it's bloody 2.5 hours. It's only like 80 minutes long. It flies by in a breeze. It's simple. It's just fun. Nothing more to say. I just enjoyed my time watching it. I give this film a 7 out of 10.
So what's he gonna do? Oh! He's pulling his cock out!
I think that 28 Days Later is arguably one of the best zombie-esque films ever made. And 28 Weeks Later, while inferior, still has one of the best opening scenes to a horror movie I've ever seen. 28 Years Later, being the third and most recent film in the series, is, while definitely my least favourite of the three, as it offers not nearly as much fresh or interesting ideas as the previous two, not to mention the film is the film is not bad at all. I still think when this series is at its weakest, it's still able to create a very solid horror flick. But something about this one just didn't quite click or have the same magic of mainly the first one, which I was really hoping for. The stuff with the infected mostly just felt more of the same, but the human, more character-driven stuff I actually found to be the best part of the movie, especially with the surprisingly great child performance from Alfie Williams and the more well-known actors like Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, and Jodie Comer are all also great in the movie. Even just seeing the world again is still interesting, and it seems like it's setting up quite a few interesting things to happen in the 2 upcoming sequels, so we'll see how that plans out. Overall, I'm not quite packing the exact punch of the original that I was hoping for. It still manages to deliver on a very solid sequel. I think this might actually get better if I rewatch it, especially maybe after the sequels come out, but as of right now, I give this film a 7 out of 10. I was expecting A Real Pain to be this sort of almost holdovers style drama with, really simple kind of premise and great performances and engaging, but, it's still kind of sad but a bittersweet in a lot of the ways. It was kind of that, but just not quite to the level of the holdovers. It's just a solid little 90-minute drama. I really like Kieran Culkin in the movie. His Oscar was well-deserved. Jesse Eisenberg does a good job, not only as director, but also as the main actor. It's 90 minutes. It's not that eating up too much of your time. It's just kind of, it does what it needs to do, and it doesn't overstay its welcome, and I just enjoyed it. 7 out of 10.
Tell me that I won't feel a thing, so give me Novocaine.
I basically got exactly what I wanted out of Novocaine. Just a simple, cool action movie with some silly little moments, cute little romance, whatever, sort of, but, you know, also, if you've seen the movie, you know, blah, 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 blah. Jack Quaid is really fun. He's basically, it's just exactly what you expect, but in a good way. Some movies like Lilo and Stitch, you're expecting it to suck, and yeah, it sucks, but this is just a fun movie. This was one of my most anticipated movies, not because I thought it was going to be some groundbreaking thing. It's just, this is a pretty safe bet that this isn't going to be fantastic, but it's just going to be pretty good, and I had a whole lot of fun with it. I saw it opening night, which was also the opening night of the Minecraft movie, at least where I am, and I was one of the few people in the cinema, and the only other people in there were these kids that were very obviously way too young to have their own tickets without adult supervision. Not that I care, but you know. And the guy, they just kept going, chicken jockey, in like really random dramatic moments. But they were like right at the back and I was right at the front, so it was like really faint and echoey. But yeah, I mean, it's just a fun little action movie. I enjoyed my time with this. 7 out of 10.
Come on, Russell, would you hurry it up?
I'm tired and my knee hurts.
Which knee?
My elbow hurts and I have to go to the bathroom.
The last of the 3 movies that I watched on the plane, and obviously, well, the best because it's the highest on the list. I just love these sorts of simple premise movies where it's just a bunch of it's just a group of people walking for like an hour and a half or whatever. The characters are all interesting to follow, and the performances really make the film, with the highlights especially being primarily Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, and these two are definitely going places. And even Mark Hamill is the almost unrecognizable villain. And as much as I love these kinds of films, I think the reason this one isn't higher is simply because it feels like it's following like a formula like a lot of the time, and I could predict which character was going to die in the scene. And while it's still pretty tense and one of the best Stephen King adaptations I've probably seen, I don't know, it just didn't quite have, it just felt a little too by the books. But I think a lot of people, especially like, this movie's directed by the guy that did The Hunger Games. I think a lot of people who like The Hunger Games a lot will enjoy this sort of movie. It's a grim story, but I think it just works well enough. I think it's really solid. It's just not one of my favourite movies. Like, not every movie has to be. I give it a 7 out of 10.
Snag. I'm a snag.
I am a big fan of the first Zootopia. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but like I think it's a solid Disney animated movie. It's probably one of the best ones of the 2010s. I heard the sequel was coming out. I thought it would be subpar, but ultimately still a pretty solid sequel to the original movie. It's exactly that. I think the whole kind of snake aspect of the story is pretty interesting. It is kind of bizarre how they just kind of never showed a single snake in the entire first movie, and just going to use that as the whole crux of the sequel, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I like seeing the characters again. A lot of the jokes are cute. The mystery is pretty interesting to watch unfold. Yeah, it's just kind of more of what I enjoyed from the first movie, but it just doesn't quite have that freshness that the original movie does, so it's just a little bit weaker. I give the film I still give it the same rating though. I give it a 7 out of 10. Tron Legacy, in my opinion, might be a contender for the most underrated movie of all time. It's easily in my top 10 favourite movies of all time, with its incredibly gorgeous visual style, incredible world building, fun action, and of course, my favourite film score ever made. Seriously, whether you like film scores or not, I beg of you to listen to the Daft Punk soundtrack for that movie. It's incredible even if you haven't seen it. With all this love of Tron Legacy, it's no surprise I was going to be excited for Tron Ares. And once I got past the fact that this is sadly not a direct sequel to one of my favourite movies, it's a very solid and great looking, great sounding action blockbuster. I hate Leto as much as the next guy, but he's fine in the movie. Evan Peters is also actually really good in the villain. I just really hope we get some sort of Tron 4 that works as both a direct sequel to this and Legacy, kind of combining the best of both stories and ending the series with just a big hurrah. But given this movie's financial result, Disney probably won't, because they are idiots that don't make good movies or advertise them properly. Maybe if this film gets enough support on Disney Plus, they'll consider making a Tron 4, so hey, if you haven't seen this, hell, even if you have already seen it, please go and see it right now, just so we can get more Tron. I beg of you. I give this movie a 7 out of 10.
So trust me, this is K-pop Demon Hunters, and if you don't believe me, I'll drive the car off a cliff.
I remember watching K-pop Demon Hunters when it first released, thinking it was just another one of those pretty good Netflix animated movies that come out about once every year or two, like Nimona or something. It'd get good reviews, maybe a Best Animated Feature nomination, and then probably wouldn't really be talked about much after that. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. I was not expecting this film, of all films, to become the cultural juggernaut it became. I mean, I'm not upset by it or anything. It's a gorgeous animated, really creative, pretty well done animated kids film with some songs that are honestly low-key bangers. I'm interested to see how things go in a potential sequel. Netflix thinking cinemas are dying when a sequel to this could easily make them an insane amount of money is, well, insane to me. Yeah, it's just a good movie. Biggest problem is, I don't know, there's just nothing really drawing me back to rewatch it. Like, I feel like I just kind of got everything out of it the first time. But yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. It's a 7 out of 10.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
I know a lot of people absolutely loved Predator Badlands, and while I didn't quite love it as much as everyone else, it's still arguably one of the best films of the franchise. I'd probably put it just underneath the first Predator and Prey. It's just a really cool and unique take on this franchise made by someone who obviously has a passion for the series. The action was great, the characters were interesting. I especially enjoyed getting to see a more human protagonist side of the Predator. The alien Easter eggs were very fun to notice, especially since there are actually some rumours that the director of this, Dan Trachtenberg, will team up with Fede Alvarez, who directed Alien Romulus, to make a new Alien vs. Predator movie. So if that ends up happening, that's going to be pretty cool. Overall, just a solid, fun action blockbuster, fun way to pass the time for 2 hours. Nothing more, nothing less. I give this film a 7 out of 10.
Here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed.
I'm someone who literally does not care in the slightest about Formula One, yet something about the Formula One movie was just such an exhilarating blockbuster the first time I watched it. 100% thinking this was on the same level as Kaczynski's other films like Tron Legacy, which is one of my all-time favourite movies, and Top Gun, which is one of the best action movies of the past decade so far. Yet when I rewatched this just a few weeks ago, something about it just didn't click as much, and it just remains a pretty solid action film that works as a great racing film for someone who doesn't enjoy real racing like me. Brad Pitt gives a fun performance amongst many of the other cast members, and all the racing scenes are all very well directed, but it just doesn't hold the same rewatchability factor as Legacy or Maverick, and almost feels too overly long at times, with a few too many racing sequences that just feel a little bit repetitive, even if all of them do look and sound amazing. And being over 2.5 hours doesn't help much either, but the positives do outweigh the negatives for a fun but flawed summer blockbuster. I give this film a 7 out of 10. I was absolutely hyped for the new Mission Impossible movie, The Final Reckoning. For the past 30 years, this franchise has consistently made movie after movie that improves and one-ups the previous, except for Mission Impossible 2. And while a lot of people weren't in love with Dead Reckoning, hell, I thought it was still one of the best and most fun films in the franchise. I was looking forward to see how they'd top it. I went out and saw it opening weekend, went out to the IMAX to see it in its full glory, and it was kind of a little bit disappointing. I mean, the underwater sequence and the plane sequences, which are the big action set pieces of the film, are both fantastic. But they're surrounded by 2.5 hours of a movie that's just kind of fine, I guess. Which is weird given how non-stop fun the last few films have been, especially Dead Reckoning, Fallout, and Ghost Protocol. Honestly, my least favourite film in the franchise outside of my second one, which is such a shame given how hyped I was for this, but oh well. I mean, even at this franchise's second lowest, it's still a pretty fun blockbuster at least. I give this film a 7 out of 10.
This kind of day gonna be much better, but it keeps on trying. We must kill the witch!
Well, the second part of last year's Wicked is certainly subpar. I mean, I certainly enjoyed Wicked for Good as it worked well enough as a conclusion to the story. The performances were still good for the most part. I was engaged most of the time, and the songs that I actually really liked from the original show are good here. But there's just definitely a few things holding this one back. For starters, the songs are just not nearly as good. Where the first one kind of had just back-to-back bangers, this one just was much more hit or miss, which I did of course know going in, having seen the original show, but I feel like it could have improved on some of the ones that I wasn't a huge fan of. The other thing is just, it's way too reliant on the nostalgia of The Wizard of Oz, where the first one had some, almost cool, kind of subtle, tongue-in-cheek nods to the original movie. This one just throws it all in your face. The whole story is around it. And it just doesn't work. It's some of the characters whose motivations don't make sense due to the movie. Why does the Scarecrow and Tin Man not recognize each other? Why does blah, blah, blah. It's just feels too shoehorned in. Overall, it's a flawed but well enough second part of the Wicked story that, at the very least, is better than the actual original musical second half. I give this film a 7 out of 10.
It'll be Mr. Ashface and the Fantastic Three.
If it's that
and the
important
press
to
will
you-
have a field day with that.
It's taken 20 years and 3 adaptations, but the Fantastic Four finally has a good movie. It's been a long but worth the while wait for the MCU to finally adapt the Fantastic Four. And yes, it was genuinely great. I think the best thing this film does is the interactions between all the characters. They do genuinely feel like a real family. The action is also really cool, especially the escape sequence in the middle from Galactus' planet with the Interstellar style visuals. The retro-futuristic aesthetic also works really well, and I'm so glad we're getting cool and creative MCU movies again, besides Brave New World. Overall, I'm actually excited to see these characters again in Doomsday and how they all will be further explored in the MCU to come. And maybe we'll get more Fantastic Four movies that, this and Thunderbolts are the only MCU movies that I've seen recently that I've actually wanted more entries for. I give this film a solid 7 out of 10.
Do you even know what robot means? Of course I do. It's like, hello, I am a robot.
Companion has to be one of those great surprise horror movies that just kind of comes out of nowhere for me, like Barbarian. For a movie released in January, this was actually pretty damn good as well. I managed to know basically nothing about this movie going in, which is the best for this sort of film. Sophie Thatcher kills it, which she's amazing in this film. I need to see her in more things ASAP, and I need to see more people watch this movie ASAP. So I won't spoil anything else just in case most people haven't seen it. But yeah, it's a fantastic horror movie. I give this film an 8 out of 10.
Well, you make me wanna shout.
I'm a big fan of the Final Destination movies, and the new film Bloodlines is no exception. Hell, I'd go as far as to say this might actually be the best in the whole series. It does the most with the premise it has since the first movies, tying in heaps of intricate ideas in such a fun and creative way, while also incorporating super great kills. I wish the posters did this movie justice, because there's genuinely not a single good poster for this otherwise really great movie, although a lot of the Final Destination movies are pretty sub-posters anyway. Definitely check this one out if you're a fan of the franchise. I give this film an 8 out of 10. Dogman's gotta be one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. I'm genuinely baffled about how nobody's talked about it really. And the animation is insanely creative and super stylized with countless laugh-out-loud visual gags. The jokes themselves have such a specific kind of humour to them, almost in the same vibe of Spider-Verse or the Captain Underpants movie, and I was actually losing track of how many times I laughed in this movie. I actually saw this opening night, and I was literally the only person in the cinema, but I couldn't stop laughing. Please, if you're a fan of great animated movies like Spider-Verse or the Captain Underpants movie, I highly recommend checking this one out. I give this film an 8 out of 10. I wish it could be higher, but there's just 10 movies that slightly edge out this one. But now, on to the top 10.
Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
Here we are, kicking off the top 10 with Avatar: Fire and Ash. The Avatar series, despite its surprisingly lukewarm reception for the most part, I actually think is probably one of the best franchises in modern blockbusters. The first one is obviously a technical marvel, and while some of the visuals look a little rough around the edges by today's standards, it's extremely ahead of its time, especially when you look at it in 3D. And yeah, sure, the story is a little bit derivative, but so are most blockbusters. It's not trying to be some massive, unique story. It's just supposed to be something simple, and it works really well. And the sequel, Way of Water, was arguably even better with improved visuals, a grander scope, and more interesting story. While Fire and Ash is no exception to this franchise being great, it definitely lacked a little bit of the scope of the other two films. The first one felt kind of special because it was just really introducing us to the world, and then because the second one was released so long afterwards, it then had to reintroduce us into the world. But this one just kind of felt like an extension of The Way of Water at times. Now, The Way of Water is a fantastic movie, so I'm not really complaining. It's just that some bits of this movie can kind of blend together in places, and it doesn't really justify its insane length at times. Outside of that, though, it's obviously still amazing looking, arguably the best looking of the three. The action is spectacular, the world building immersive, and the stuff with Spider was probably the best part of the whole thing. I'm still extremely hyped for how the series concludes with 4 and 5, with those... I'm predicting it will feel like a big two-parter epic concluding everything, which will hopefully help them stand out from 2 and 3 a bit more, and obviously be the best of the series. As is, though, I give this film a solid 8 out of 10. Thunderbolts has got to be one of the biggest breaths of fresh air in the MCU we've seen in a while. I initially was quite skeptical about this film, thinking it'd be fine at best, kind of repetitive of the Suicide Squad. But I was pleasantly surprised as this ended up being in the top 3 best post-Endgame MCU movies. Not to disrespect the other MCU movies, but something that I really feel differentiates this from other MCU films is this actually looks and feels like just a normal, real movie at times. The way it's shot is genuinely really interesting, the action sequences are really cool, and the characters are all fun and bounce off each other in humorous ways. I'm honestly just excited to see these characters more in Avengers Doomsday and hopefully Secret Wars. I'm honestly a sucker for these sorts of team-up films, so obviously this worked for me, and that is also the same reason I'm still holding out any hope for Doomsday. If you missed this one, which I wouldn't be surprised given the film couldn't even crack $400 million at the box office, I highly recommend you do so, as it just really works well as a fantastic action movie as well as a great superhero MCU movie. I give this film an 8 out of 10. The new Naked Naked Gun movie is easily one of the funniest movies of the year for me, and one of the biggest surprises as well. In my opinion, the original Naked Gun movie still holds up nearly 40 years later as one of the funniest films ever made. So obviously when I heard there was going to be a new one written by Seth MacFarlane of all people, my eyes were rolling. However, actually watching it had some of the hardest laughs I've had in the cinema in a long time, especially being in a nearly packed audience who also found the movie as hilarious as I did. The visual gags are especially on point here, and Liam Neeson just needs more comedic roles, and honestly, I'd even watch another Liam Neeson Naked Gun movie. Please, please, please bring back more comedy movies like this, Hollywood. I am begging for more stuff like this. We need more comedies that can actually be straight up funny. I give this film an 8 out of 10.
Hi, can I take your order?
55 burgers, 55 fries, 55 tacos, 55 pies, 55 cokes, 100 tater tots, 100 pizzas, 100 tenders, 100 meatballs, 100 coffees, 55 wings, 55 shakes, 55 pancakes, 55 pasta, 55 peppers, and 155 taters.
I think Friendship might actually be the funniest movie of the year. I've always loved the parts of I Think You Should Leave that I've seen. You know, the 55 burgers, 55 fries, 55 tacos, 55 pie thing. However, I just couldn't get into the actual episodes when I tried watching them, because it kind of just felt more like a compilation of sketches on YouTube rather than an actual show. So I think this style of comedy worked way better in movie form for me. His constant attempts of befriending Paul Rudd in literally the worst ways humanly possible was genuinely hilarious most of the time, and I couldn't get enough of Tim's cringe comedy style. Give me 15 more of these movies ASAP. I give this movie a 9 out of 10.
Seem like he has weapons, but I don't know.
I don't have weapons.
I went into Weapons with moderate expectations. Being a fan of the director's previous film Barbarian, I wasn't sure if he was going to be like a sort of one-hit wonder, or this was actually going to be really good. And at first I wasn't sure, but I quickly realised this is the exact kind of horror movie I'm into. The whole thing has this multi-perspective story where it changes to a different character in their chunk of the story, and it leads to one of the most engaging horror movies of the past few years. Honestly, this is just one of those movies like Barbarian where the less you know about it, the better. So for whatever reason you haven't checked this one out yet, I advise you do as soon as possible. All the actors here are at the top of their game. The scares are actually pretty damn scary, especially the car scene. Some people said the running thing was corny, but I don't know, if I saw someone like that running towards me, I'd be pretty damn petrified. Obviously the movie is far from perfect still, but something about it just really clicked for me, and any movie that could have me engaged as much as this one did is going to get away with some good bonus points. With Zach Cregger having both this and Barbarian under his belt now, I think it just makes me even more hyped for his rendition of Resident Evil later this year. I give this film a 9 out of 10.
I love your accent.
American women all love accents.
We do, because we don't got none.
I first heard of Anora back when it released in December 2024. From the instant I heard about this unique take on a Cinderella-style story that is both an excellent drama and hilarious comedy, I knew I wanted to see it. And then a few months later, it swept the Oscars, winning Best Picture, Original Screenplay, Editing, Actress, and of course Director. And I knew I had to see it ASAP. I finally managed to watch it after that, and I have to say, it absolutely deserves every single one of those awards. It's one of the most memorable and unique movies I've ever watched, and that despite only going nearly a year, having only seen it once, I could still perfectly remember everything in it, which is really what makes a movie great. I've never seen any other Sean Baker movie outside of this, but honestly watching this just makes me want to see more of his stuff. And while I had heard of Mikey Madison before this movie, having seen her in Scream 5 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this is what really has made me love her as an actress, and I can already tell she's going to be a very big star. This is easily the best movie on this list that actually technically released last year, and might even be the best film from last year, period. And definitely would have won my list last year had I seen it by then. The only thing that I didn't love about this film was just the first hour or so, the first time I watched it, as it's kind of feels like it's unnecessary while watching it. But later on in the movie, it starts to become obvious that, yeah, it is important to the overall story. You just got to get through it. It really just makes everything click into place. So if you are really digging it in the first half, at the very least, wait until the big kidnapping scene, which might be one of my favourite scenes from recent cinema. If you haven't yet seen this somehow, I absolutely recommend you seek it out at any cost and watch it knowing as little as possible. I give this film a 9 out of 10. I had never seen a Paul Thomas Anderson movie besides Boogie Nights before One Battle After Another came out, and so I decided to watch through all his movies before the release of One Battle After Another, and I must say, it made the film even better. It becomes even more apparent after watching the director's previous movies that this truly is his magnum opus. All of the actors here are at the top of their games, with this movie genuinely having the potential to have nominations for not only Best Main and Supporting Actor, but also Best Main and Supporting Actress. I'm writing this a few days before the Oscar nominations come out, so, well, let's see how it goes. I don't think I've ever loved Leo more than I have in this, with this silly little stoner subplot. Sean Penn is an actor I've never really paid that much attention to, but he really blew me away here with Lockjaw, being both insanely threatening and almost ridiculously stupid at the same time. Chase Infinity is the third standout with one of the best acting debuts I've seen recently, and I'm already calling it that she's going to be the next big thing. The pacing is another thing I want to say is amazing, that the movie is damn near 3 hours in length, but also flies by in a jiffy. The music by Radiohead's Pianist is, while very simple and almost repetitive at times, maintains the stressful nature of the story in a fantastic way. Honestly, this whole movie is a sight to behold and will go down as a modern classic for decades to come. The only reason I feel like it isn't higher is that while this movie is absolutely amazing, there were about 3 more movies that just hit even harder for me on a personal level. But there's no denying that this movie really is a modern masterpiece. I give this film a 9 out of 10.
Almost time for Halloween. Don't come to my house or else I'll suck your dick. Blood. I'll suck your blood. Oh, shit.
Sinners is easily one of the best movies of the year, right out of the gate. The first time I watched this, when it came out in cinemas, I heard people praising it left and right, calling it this generational movie, and I was slightly disappointed, as I ended up expecting something different. I mean, hearing everyone call this the absolute magnum opus, obviously my expectations were going to be a little bit inflated. But when I rewatched it at home, this movie definitely clicked a whole lot more. Sinners is a movie that just oozes style in a way that is rarely seen nowadays. It manages to get a premise that sounds so silly and technically already happened in the movie 30 years ago, and it was very silly, that being Dusk Till Dawn. But this actually manages to play the concept of a character-driven drama first hour and a campy vampire film second hour really well, and the transition from the two doesn't feel that jarring. The dual performances from Michael B. Jordan were stellar, and there were even some times where I forgot that they were the same actor. I know Timothée Chalamet and Leonardo DiCaprio are both up for Best Actor, but I think Michael B. Jordan's another hot contender. Of all the dual performances that came out of this year, I think Jordan was easily the best. The film also looks incredible, especially in the sequences shot in IMAX 70mm film. It's now become a life goal of mine to see this on a true IMAX screen. Overall, this is simply just a fantastic movie that will be remembered for years to come, but in my opinion, there were just 2 movies in 2025 that I like just a little bit more. But I give this film a strong 9 out of 10.
Chalamet!
Oh my god. This had to be the most blown away I have been by a movie probably since The Holdovers. I know Sinners and One Battle After Another are probably more popular, and I was actually expecting big things from those movies. I think it's just the pure shock from this one that really gave this film the edge. I knew other people loved this one a lot, but people also loved Uncut Gems a lot, whereas I thought this film was just alright, and A Timothée Chalamet movie about ping pong with the similar stress and anxiety vibes of Uncut Gems. Didn't particularly stand out to me, but boy oh boy do I need to revisit Uncut Gems, because if it is anything like this masterpiece, I was missing out on my first viewing. First of all, the whole ping pong aspect of the film, which that was kind of like my biggest a ping pong movie. It was kind of like a red flag. I expected it to be the whole thing, but it's literally the first 30 minutes, and I mean, even that first 30 minutes is actually really good. Given the movie is still brand new, I won't spoil what happens in the rest of it, but I will say it turns into one of the most bonkers, insane, and unpredictable movies I've ever witnessed. I was gripped to my seat, eyes glued to the screen, jaw left on the floor, laughing from pure shock on multiple occasions. I mean, it's got everything. This is easily Timothée Chalamet's best performance, and it's honestly tough to say whether him or Leo will get the Oscar this year. But honestly, I wouldn't be mad with either, although I would probably prefer Timothy. He just portrays this complete dork of a narcissist so insanely well that it's not even funny. I cannot sing this film's praises enough. Please go watch and support this movie. You absolutely will not regret it. Some of the best 2.5 hours of film I've ever witnessed. I give this film a 9 out of 10. Well, here we are. The number one favourite movie of 2025. Not only my most anticipated movie of the year, but arguably the most anticipated I have been for any movie in my entire life. I've always had an interest in Superman's character, but there's always been something about him that quite never clicked for me, and that's probably because my exposure through him was through the movies. As charming and fun as the Christopher Reeve films are, they are particularly great adaptations of the source material and mainly just work as fun 70s, 80s nostalgia, time capsule blockbusters. Then you have Superman Returns, which was supposed to be a soft reboot of the franchise, but didn't really make enough money to go beyond one movie, and despite how poorly the film has aged in places, I think it's alright. Then, of course, you have Man of Steel, which is not only a bad adaptation, but it is it completely ruined the general public's opinions on the character. Not only with that, and also Batman v Superman, which is one of the worst movies of all time. Superman never had a reinvention of the character in the way the Batman did with the Dark Knight trilogy, and even more recently with Matt Reeves' Batman. Superman's always just kind of been not that interesting of a character. And that all brings us to James Gunn's Superman, which is meant to reintroduce the general audiences to the character in a more comic-accurate fashion, while also introducing us to this new DC universe. And I must say, Gunn succeeded with flying colours. Is this movie as tightly paced as a superhero movie like The Incredibles, gorgeous looking as Spider-Verse, as grand as Infinity War Endgame, or as refreshing as The Dark Knight? No. But there's something special about this film to me. Superman being an actual, joyful, optimistic character with a silly outfit and punching bad guys is just the exact kind of Superman movie I've wanted this whole time. I just didn't know it. If I'd seen this movie as a child, I would have obsessively rewatched this movie as much as I rewatch movies like Up. The whole movie has such a positive energy and fun vibe that makes it so rewatchable, to the point where in the 6 months since this movie's release, I've already seen it basically 10 times. The action is genuinely pretty creative and definitely has similar vibes to Gunn's previous films like the Guardians trilogy. And the whole film gets me so excited for this upcoming universe and where things eventually go, in not only the sequel Man of Tomorrow releasing in about 1.5 years, but also how he's going to treat these other characters. I'm sure when more of these Superman movies come out, I won't like this one as much, since this one will just feel more like a kind of normal Superman movie, and the sequels will just be this but way better. But as it stands, this is one of my top 10 favourite movies of all time. I've seen this so many times, and it's always a joy to revisit. It gives me such a positive feeling of hope, not just for movies, I mean just as a person. I cannot watch this movie and not have a smile on my face. Sure, movies like Sinners, One Battle After Another, Mighty Supreme, they might be technically better, more well made, more film bro-like movies, but I don't care. This movie made me happier than any other movie this year combined. It's a special movie to me, and that is why I think it's my favorite movie of 2025, and I will be easily giving this movie a 10 out of 10. And there you have it, the ending of the ranking of the 2025 ranking video of the ranking. I wanted to introduce a bit of a new segment to these videos for the last little bit. Just kind of talk about my top 20 favorite movies that I watched in 2025 that were actually not released in 2025 or even late 2024 at all. Some of these are all-time classics, and some of these films you may not have even heard of before, but if you haven't seen any of these 20 movies, these are just movies that I definitely recommend you go and watch if they seem interesting at all. Number 20 is Birdman, an incredibly interesting and well-made movie about such a simple premise, but filmed in such an interesting way that makes the whole entire film looks like one shot. So anyone that's a fan of oners, that one's definitely something to seek out. 19 is The Host, an incredible Korean horror movie about a radioactive seawater creature creating a Loch Ness monster-style thing. Absolutely recommend it if you're a fan of like Parasite, as this was directed by the same guy. 18 is District 9, a unique take on a sci-fi alien invasion film with the almost found footage style perspective from half of it with Peter Jackson's name attached. It's a shame Blomkamp never made anything that holds a candle to that film. 17, There Will Be Blood, an epic of biblical proportions which everyone should watch at least once in their life, with arguably some of the best performances in cinema from Daniel Day-Lewis, and despite what Tarantino may tell you, Paul Dano. 16 is Gravity, a anxiety-inducing space film by the director of the best Harry Potter film, made to be seen in 3D. The Master, a film about basically the founding of a Scientology-style cult, featuring a career-best performance from Philip Seymour Hoffman. If you're a fan of him and anything he's been in, I definitely recommend you check that one out for his performance alone. 14 is The Pianist, a haunting Schindler's List-style war film, which I saw as a masterpiece as someone who doesn't even really like war movies. 13 is Punch Drunk Love. If you're a fan of Sandler's more dramatic films like Uncut Gems and you somehow haven't seen this, it is a must-watch, featuring arguably Sandler's best performance to date. 12 is The Notebook. Yeah, it's the sappy old person romance movie, but my god, it is probably one of the best out there, and it is as iconic as it is for a reason. 11 is Almost Famous, some of the best 70s style vibes I've ever experienced watching a movie with a stellar soundtrack and such a fun story to see play out. 10 is Hundreds of Beavers. This, alongside Lake Michigan Monster, is some of the most creative comedies I've ever seen in recent years, and I need as many people to see them as absolutely possible. 9 is The Tale of Princess Kaguya, an absolutely stunning and beautiful and an absolute must-see for any fans of Ghibli's work. 8 is It's a Wonderful Life. For an 80-year-old Christmas movie, it really is one of the most timeless films ever made, with one of the best, probably third acts in history that really just makes the movie. 7 is Magnolia, a magnum opus from PTA that literally has taken him 25 years to top. 6 is Requiem for a Dream, a haunting masterpiece that would really be nice when people aren't riding their motorcycles outside of my house. A haunting masterpiece that will stick with you until the day you die. 5 is The Kid, Literally a 100-year-old movie that is barely an hour long but manages to contain both hilarious slapstick comedy and a heartwarming story that tugs at your heartstrings, all without a single line of dialogue. 4 is Battle Royale. You can see why the Hunger Games took so much from this, as this is much better than the Hunger Games, and I highly recommend this to anyone who is or even isn't a fan of the Hunger Games. 3 is Do the Right Thing, one of the best movies about race relations I've ever seen. Definitely deserves more recognition. 2 is The Godfather Part 2. Yeah, it's hailed as one of the best sequels ever made for good reason. And 1 is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, arguably the best Western ever made, and a truly epic finale to the trilogy with one of the best endings I've ever seen. Yeah, that's it. That's all the stuff, so I will see you next year.